Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I will show you how I painted the Aragorn oil painting that I actually finished a couple of months ago by now, but I finally found time to make a little voiceover walkthrough video. So at the beginning I was a little nervous if I could manage to paint this piece, because usually I do not paint portraits, but luckily Aragorn wears a cloak that covers half of his face, so I only had to paint his nose and mouth and his chin. Still, it was a little tricky to get his face look realistic. I started with the sketch by drawing it with a white marker on a black canvas. So when the painting that I'm doing is quite dark in the values, I prefer using those black canvases. And thanks to the white lines, it's also not that difficult to lose your sketch. I started right with the face because I wanted to check if I'm able to paint the face properly. And once it is done, I thought, okay, it looks great, I'll continue with the painting. So when I draw or paint people, then I always start with the face, and when this looks good, then I will continue. The first step I did was adding the light and dark values. So I basically focused on the light and dark sides of his face. In my opinion, this is much easier because I shape his face before I focus on the details. For his basic skin tone, I mixed titanium white with burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre, and depending on how light and dark the area that I'm painting was, I added more white or more black. And at this point I was really satisfied with the results so far, and it also didn't take me that long to block in the face and the basic shapes, and then I started focusing on the details. For the smaller areas of his face I used burnt umber and a little bit of burnt sienna and black to make out all the shadows. Once the face was done, I was super happy and excited to continue with the rest, and this was the clothing. For this I used olive green, a little bit of yellow and mainly black. For the fingers I used basically the same colors that I've used for his face, but darkened them a little with burnt umber. And the colors I used for his clothing were black for the shadow and dark areas, then white mixed with yellow for the brighter areas, and then we had olive green. And this part of his cloak was kind of a highlight, so I mixed yellow with white, as this area was illuminated by the candle on the right. To generate a warmer look of his clothing on the right, I mixed some more yellow and burnt sienna to the green, and compared to his glove, you see that it's a much warmer green. And painting all those fabric wrinkles is really a bit of a challenge. So again, I did not focus on the details, but I just blocked in the bright areas and the dark areas. When this is done, I carefully blend them together so the transitions look smooth and nice. And I still only used yellow, green and black for this one. And depending on if it should look warmer, I added a little bit of burnt sienna, or for the brightest parts even a little bit of white. His pipe was not big deal, it was actually only a piece of wood, so I used white with a tiny bit of burnt sienna and black to make it look warm but also grey. The left side of Aragorn was no big deal too, because it's basically pretty dark, so I mixed only green with a lot of black. I continued with this highlight and dark area technique with the rest of his cloak. I really love using those oil colors for the wrinkles of his clothing because it allows me to get those nice and soft transitions. But still I try to separate the dark and light areas and blend them at the end. So as you see here, I painted green and darker areas first, and I left the areas where I wanted the highlights to be and added them afterwards with white, with yellow and green that I mixed. What also is the main difference between oil and acrylic paintings is that with oils I paint around the sketch. So as you see, I left the candle and the mug that is standing here on the table, and I'm just painting around it. With acrylics on the other hand, I would just add layer on layer because the acrylic paint is not that opaque. So this would allow me to add a thin layer after another without losing my sketch. If I had to pick one of the most difficult areas of that painting, then it would be probably this boot. And this is because there was a lot of dirt on this leather, so I couldn't really distinguish what was a highlight and what was dirt. It was kind of a challenge, so I again tried to focus on only the highlights and the shadows. And then I was like, okay, let's see how it looks like at the end. And maybe improvise by adding more black and shadow areas later on when the painting is dry. But I kept on with my technique with the highlights and shadows, and to my surprise it was not that bad. And once the basic shape of the boot was done, I just added some more highlights with a tiny brush. So the next step was the jug, and for this one I used again titanium white because it was one of the brightest things on this painting, and mixed it with a bit of yellow ochre and a bit of black. First I blocked in the basic colors and then I carefully blended them together to make it look three-dimensional and realistic. I basically used the same technique for the candle holder, so again like the highlights and the shadows and then blending them together. And now we're getting to the highlight of the painting, the light. The painting was already dry at this point, and I took a soft blender brush and made a soft spot around the actual candle with cadmium orange and a little bit of cadmium yellow mixed with white. The next step was the flame, that is actually only titanium white with a tiny bit of yellow, and the rest of the candle, yeah, it's just cadmium yellow with a little bit of white. And the best part was kept for the end, so this was the smoke. It's basically titanium white with just a little bit of black, and I carefully blended some smoky structures to the painting. So here we are at the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and also enjoyed the painting itself. And if you did, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, it would mean everything. Thanks for watching!